Alrighty. Hola. Trying out this different angle with some nice feedback from a friend. I thought that I would record, not I thought that, I am recording, I decided to record a video talking about this day that I am experiencing. There are unique parts of it, but it is also a somewhat standard-ish day in the life, in this life that I'm experiencing currently when I'm in a place like this. And so I thought I would share with y'all, because some of these things which are now the norm for me are pretty well the norm, very common for me, are things which 6 years ago, before I left the Marine Corps, or even a few years ago, there are things that I had never heard of, let alone never done. And so, yeah, this day, and the sun is, it's like really bright there, huh? Sun is setting. That's the ocean over there. It's an awesome place. Very thankful to newish friend here in Portugal who sublet this home to us for $440, 400 euros a month, including utilities. And on this field that is full of yellow flowers and others, and then this ocean back there. It's really been a blessing to have these several months here, pretty much just being here and enjoying life and doing pretty normal, quote-unquote, life stuff, getting up, doing morning routine. Well, I guess I'll just share. But this is the first time in some years, really, that I've had this amount of time in a place just kind of resting and recovering and recharging like that, just doing the normal errands and things like that, and not doing a lot of intentionally challenging things. Really been appreciating it, and connecting with Portugal is in the way that I feel connected. It's been a real boon. I've been really wonderfully pleased, and I came here initially to see if I'm interested in living here long term. I've been feeling called here for several years, and yeah, I do feel it. I feel that. Well, anywho, wake up this morning, and Asha and I, generally we wake up somewhat when we wake up. Sometimes we have an alarm. These months, really the last year, I've been quite gentle with self, with sleep, with diet, with even things that, as I've discussed with the sexual addiction, are things that I know don't go in the direction that I'm interested in going. The larger practice that I currently practice, even larger than meditation, which is something that I am working to practice all the time, but the larger practice is the practice of being loving and gracious, and that's starting with the self. And so when things arise that I know, this is not my ideal way, or this is not necessarily going in the direction I'm interested in, instead of beating the self up or putting on these really strict rules or whatever, instead being gracious and loving, as I do with a small child, and being curious about what are the deeper causes for these patterns that still exist, even though I know that they're not leading me in the direction I'm interested in. But this morning we had an alarm, so Rose, I think the alarm was for 7 o'clock. But then we just cuddled and relaxed for a while. Got up around an hour later, dozed in and out. And then we got ready quickly. Generally, I really appreciate and work to ensure that my morning routine is getting up, getting a little jog in just to move the body, going somewhere if I can in nature, and then sitting in meditation for some amount of time, and then journaling the artist pages, which is from as I'm in the midst of the third time of reading The Artist's Way, which is a book that I've posted about in several previous messages, and in that is the journaling practice of just stream of consciousness, 3 pages every morning, and it's been really nice. I like to do those things for the morning routine as is the basic foundation, but this time I didn't get up early enough to do that, and so being gracious with myself, not beating myself up. But then we went shortly, we left about 8:40 and drove a little ways up the coast to a sound journey that we had learned about from one of the groups on Telegram in this area. So as a man, cool man, he's about my age, he's been living in his van, which in this area and these sorts of communities is very common to find people who are living in vans, to find people who are living in like Bedouin tents or living on the land, or else they're living in communities of people in houses or all different sorts of things, yurts and all different sorts of things. But this area in Portugal is more than any other area that I've been in that I've been aware of, and I've been in a good amount of these sorts of communities in multiple places in Thailand and multiple places in India, multiple places in Mexico, multiple places in the United States, and probably other places. And there are these sort of nucleuses or whatever of people from around the world who are no longer interested in being a part of these systems that we feel are harmful or are just not going in the direction that we're interested in going, and not interested in supporting those or perpetuating them in some way. But more than anywhere that I have been aware of, this part of Portugal has people who are really doing it, who are like single mother from Africa coming and meeting different communities and saying, yeah, this is what I'm going to do with my 2-year-old. We're going to live in nature. We're going to live with other children and in these other positive ways, instead of being in the city and being in the grind and that sort of thing. Like it's a very common story around here. It's been very inspiring and very wow, strong mirror to me, because I've been living in ways that I feel are true to me, but I've also been holding back a bit from fully going full on in some ways. And so to see so many people. So this man, he was living in his van with his dog in different communities and things for 6 years, and now he's living with his partner and their child in a community and place. But he put on a sound journey for us using gong and different flutes and different sorts of instruments that are, I don't know if they even have names, but it was in a cave, so it was low tide, and so there was about 8 or 9 of us, and we lay down in the cave for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and he plays these different instruments and takes you on a journey and whatnot. So we did that. It was a nudist beach, which I didn't even know there was a nudist beach here. It's just a small thing. There was no one there. But afterwards, partner and I, we went out and we had a nice swim in nature, just being enjoying nature's beauty and nature's awesomeness. And that I don't think that I've shared, but I've attended different things on this journey of healing my sexuality and bringing in healthy foundations and things. Attended different things, one of them being something that's named ISTA, I-S-T-A, and I'll probably record a video about it at some point, but a good amount of that has just been bringing in healthy just appreciation and desexualization of the body, and not, why it is being nude this way that every person is. Every person has the exact same things. And why does that need to be some sort of thing that is like shameful or so it feels so much craving that everyone's just going to turn into rapists or something? Why does that need to be that way? So that was nice. We drove through the back roads and enjoyed. Earlier that morning, we had microdosed. I had microdosed. Microdose is a term for ingesting a small amount of psychedelic substances. There's many different psychedelics. Many of them are legal because the vast majority, and there's hundreds, are from nature. Nature's been creating them in all different sorts of ways. Plants, lichen, mushrooms, secretions from animals, bark, all different sorts of stuff. I mean, tons that we don't even know about, I'm sure. They've been used since recorded history. I mean, some of the oldest recorded history as far as cave paintings or old things in the Aztecs and the Incas or in India seem to bear very strong similarities to certain psychedelics that also grow there, and the implements that are used to utilize them. So these things have been around for a long time. And microdosing is taking what would be considered a subperceptual or below a small amount. You're not having an actual journey or what people often call a trip. Instead, you take it a small amount every 3 days, and these have been studied. Thousands of studies have been. I'll record a video on psychedelics. I've been intending to. But there have been thousands of studies in the 60s and 70s, and then again since the 90s, thousands of studies by Johns Hopkins, Yale, Imperial College of London, all kinds of places that have been studying them and continue to study them now for use with things, doing medical studies in the West. Mostly it's focused on, initially at least, symptomatic issues, because that's just how the medical system is set up. It's like, let's focus on issues instead of like, how does this impact people for evolving themselves. But so lots of it has been for people with treatment-resistant depression or people who are terminal cancer patients or things like that. And so there's tons of research and information on how psychedelics impact beneficially the brain as far as causing new brain cells to grow, neurogenesis, or causing the brain to be flexible and adaptable, creative. It's called neuroplasticity. And so that's actually how I first became open to psychedelics. Years ago, while I was still in the Marine Corps, I heard a podcast episode of the Tim Ferriss Show. If you've not heard it, Tim, he interviews many very interesting people with the pretense being of the show to speak with people who are masters in whatever they're masters in chess, masters in business, masters in research, masters in martial arts, masters in writing, masters in creativity, all kinds of things, but to chat with them and explore their processes and their ways of thinking and suss out like similarities or things like that. I've gained a lot of information that has really benefited me and assisted me thanks to the Tim Ferriss Show, and I greatly appreciate Tim for his journey and how he shares it with us. It's not currently, I don't ingest a lot of content these days, so I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. And for me, I'm currently in an period of life that's more focused in spirituality and whatnot than it seems like he is currently. There's no judgment, it's just we're in different places, but I've gained a lot of benefit and I'm really appreciative. But in one of his episodes, and his name is Tim Ferriss, Tim space Ferriss, in one of his episodes back in 2015 probably, he interviewed a man named Jim Fadiman, Fadiman, who he was a researcher with back in the 60s when Harvard was doing lots of studies with LSD, and Jim Fadiman was working there under Timothy Leary, who was one of the leading psychologists or psychiatrists. I never remember the difference. One of the leading in the world at that time, and even now made a huge impact before he became involved in the research of LSD, which was all legal research at that time. Before he came involved with that, he was one of very impactful in psychology. So Jim was there with them. If I remember correctly, maybe I'm speaking about someone else, but Jim has been involved in this since that time. And so he was giving an interview with Tim, and they were talking about microdosing specifically. And before that, I had been like 100 are bad, don't dare to keep kids off drugs, these quote-unquote anti-drug campaigns in the U.S. And that was totally what I believed. I saw everything as a drug and they're all bad, and there's all these stories, people go crazy from them or whatever. And in this interview, they were sharing about microdosing and how entrepreneurs and Silicon Valley CEOs and artists and spiritual people, pastors and priests, and these people were utilizing microdosing. And I was like, oh wow, that's interesting, because back then I was very into business, and so I was like, okay, I'm open to it. And that opened up the journey once I left the Marine Corps of exploring those, among other things, and gaining so much benefit from them. I'm really grateful. But I took over 2 years off of all substances, including psychedelics. So I have not microdosed in several years, and felt into it and decided to begin several months of microdosing. So that was the first thing this morning, among other things, was taking the microdose, and then going to the sound journey, then driving back, and I may not remember everything, coming home a little after midday. I made some poha, which is it's a type of Indian rice that I really enjoyed when I was there, and it's like this flattened rice with turmeric and peanuts and things, and I didn't know the recipe, but I reached out and asked Sister Lucy, who is the woman who started the Maher organization, which is this incredible organization that I've mentioned before, native local Indian woman who started it, where I was staying for some months when I first went to India, and just being around all of these incredible children, people and women mostly, but also men who have been living on the streets or who have experienced types of abuse or orphans or whatever. But this environment that Sister and everyone there at Maher makes is incredible, and the youngers learning from and being taught by the olders and all of this sort of thing. So I reached out to her and she shared the recipe. So made that, and then Asha went to work on the computer for a bit, and I used some time on the phone, which is something that I have been doing a lot of these days, and it's something that I'm exploring as I have generally been moving more and more away from time on the screens and more away from the phone, but I do interact with lots of people all over the world these days, and I'm very grateful and appreciative that the vast majority of those interactions are positive for myself and for them, and there are often times where I'm sharing or supporting in some way, and so exploring where is that balance of being there. And I also get great benefit from it. I get great support from interacting with so many awesome people day in, day out. Yeah, exploring that. So I talked to a new friend down here, an older man, and he's been experiencing different, what he's diagnosed with as bipolar challenges for years, and just supporting him and hearing him as he shares, that he has had feelings of suicide and things, and just being an open ear and a support and sharing feedback or potential tools or things if they're interested or desire. And then I had a video call with a young friend in Uganda who I haven't talked with in a while verbally. We've messaged, and he's an incredible man that is young, mid-20s. He speaks 20 languages, and really interesting, really awesome guy. And also, during the time of, if you remember the organization Invisible Children in the United States and other places, that was drawing attention to the civil war that was going on in parts of Uganda and different areas around there, using child soldiers and things like that. I mean, he's a man who was impacted directly by that for an extended amount of time, and his family, some of whom are not here. And his currently life is not easy, but his attitude and his positivity and his support, it's just like fantastic. And he shared that he just recently got a job, and I'm currently at the place where I am able to share some finances with him. It's not a ton, but it's enough to where it can take off the concern of the first months of rent as he moves to the town where this job is, and provide him some that he can just enjoy life as well. So just be able to interact together for a bit. Then I had a call with another friend in Uganda, and he's also a great guy. We're similar ages, and he's a policeman there, and he's interested in moving out of the force and being able to support his family and give them the education and things that he would like without being part of the force and of all of that energy in that system, and also just for more income, because it's a challenging, I think, most everywhere in the world. I don't know, there's probably places, but being a police officer does not seem like an easy or financially lucrative job. And so we had chatted over these months, and we began a small business together in Uganda. So we just had a conversation about that, just basically for him to share things that he wants to, and had some different conversations with other people, with a new friend in Burma, because I intend to be heading to Myanmar after this and enter into extended meditation retreat. If not there, then somewhere in the vicinity, but currently I'm intending there. And just some things like that. And I went out and sat feet on the grass, actually soaking my feet in urine. There's a thing called urine therapy. First came on my radar when I was in India over a year ago, and But then I was kind of like, yeah, that's a bit out of my wheelhouse. I have experienced enough things in life to know that anything is possible, and I don't need to judge it, but it doesn't really resonate with me right now. But then over the months, it kept coming on my radar from different places and different ways, people that I trusted. And then ultimately I saw a TED Talk video on it, which, like I said, I don't ingest much content, and I saw a TED Talk about urine therapy. I was like, what? And then, of course, to learn that, like urea and things in the urine, it's used in many of the most expensive lotions and things like that, because it's been known for a long time to be very healthy. But anywho, I have some fungus on my toenails and things like that I've had for years, and so I've been exploring soaking it in urine. And I was doing some journaling of the artist's way, because normally, like I say, I like to do it in the morning, but this time I didn't. So I was doing some journaling. I had earlier today, the other day I bought some coffee with ginseng, which I had never seen before, but it was at the local bakery. And I don't drink coffee generally, very rarely. I don't have anything really against it. It's just not something that resonates with me. And as I've dry fasted and more sensitive to the body, I can feel generally the body is not really interested in it. But I was curious with this. So I had some of that. And while I was journaling, I had one puff. And that's like one puff, not like smoking a joint or a pipe or something, but one puff, which cannabis is a substance that I only began utilizing it after I left the Marine Corps, so in my early 30s. And initially, the relationship with it was exploratory, and it was similar also to alcohol, which was the other substance that I had in my life at that time. In other words, the relationship that we're taught in the West, intentionally or unintentionally, but most every video, movie, song, whatever that mentions alcohol teaches us that it's something to be consumed in excess in some way or all the time. And so I went about cannabis with that initially as well. But then as I connected with people and learned more about psychedelics and the way these people interact with these substances, which have been around since Mother Nature began putting them out, who knows how long, and it's shown that our bodies have evolved with them, then I began changing my relationship with it. But still, currently, cannabis is just not one that I've experienced benefit with it for sure, and I'm appreciative of it. But it's not one that really resonates with me strongly. Currently, I utilize it very small amount, but sometimes for creativity or a different perspective, exploration, or things like that. So I had a puff, doing those sorts of things at the house, just enjoying. And then I went to weekly Vipassana meditation gathering. There's just a small amount of people in this area. Every week we come together and we group sit for 1 hour in meditation, Vipassana. And it's great. It's wonderful. I haven't been meditating heavily, or I won't even say heavily, but I haven't been meditating nearly as deeply as I have previously, or that I like to. But like I said, I'm at this place where I'm being real gracious with the self, just exploring where is this coming from. Why do I avoid doing things that I know I really enjoy and really appreciate and really benefit from? How about that? Hey, what up? Isn't that incredible? Like that. That's wild, huh? Like, that's me, but a different perspective. What a trip the world is in life. So sat the meditation. That was it's always nice, and sitting now in lotus position, which is something that I began slowly in 2018 when I first started daily meditation-ish. I would sit a little bit in lotus position a few minutes, and my knees would be screaming with pain, and my mind is telling I can't do this. And I had lots of stories, physical and mental stories about knee pain specifically after years in the Marine Corps and periods where I could almost not walk, things like that. So I had lots of stories, but I kept doing slowly, and now I was probably 75 minutes sitting in lotus position, and there's some discomfort, but that's part of the practice. And so cool. One of the ladies, she gave me uh, a new plant of the gooseberries, which is a fruit that I first had in India and I was just eating them by like the gross, and I had no idea that they were in Portugal, and came some weeks back and they were right there on their ground. So she said they grow like weeds, and she planted one for me and gave it to me. So that's cool. I'll give it to the owners here. Did that. Drove home. Actually, no, I saw the incredible sunset going into the ocean because, as I said, there's this view. And so driving through the countryside, simple life, people, and the sun going into the ocean. So awesome. Yeah, and that's pretty much the day. I came back and walked down, took some recycling down, see the local people out doing their thing, chat a little bit. Now, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do tonight. A little bit, go to bed. So that's a day in the life. There's probably more, and I'm not like super intentional these days as far as filling every moment of the day with intentionally positive activities or things that are positive conditioning all the time. There have been times, years, where I was more focused on that. It was really like, let's squeeze in all of this different super positive, intentional, like supportive stuff that really helped me evolve very quickly and shift parts of my experience that I had been challenged with for years. But currently I'm taking kind of some of that structure and intentionality, and then also just some space and relaxation. But so much of my life now, I've been doing this stuff for these years, so dedicated to it, that a lot of my life is just pretty positive, self-reinforcing. Yeah, like I didn't mention, I took a cold shower because cold showers help the immune system and stimulate that. And during the cold shower, I just automatically begin singing affirmations that I have created about different areas that I have been challenged in, that I want to evolve or whatnot, because I have trained doing affirmations, linked that to taking a shower. I've been doing that for years, so now I don't even think about it. I just feel the water and just automatically singing these positive affirmations about the self. And so there's all kinds of little things like that. But generally, really just enjoying and there's no doubt there's questions during the day, and there's feelings of anxiety like the day is already over, and well, I want to do this or that, or that's a part of the current experience. That's a part of it. And so c'est la vie. All right, friends, love you. Namaste.